The Thames Tideway is one of London's biggest engineering projects. As workers dig a new sewage tunnel beneath the city, they can find long-buried pieces of history. Now, a 500-year-old skeleton found in the Thames sheds light on those who lived and died working on the river hundreds of years ago. The Thames is an important part of the area's history. At 215 miles long, it is the second longest river in the UK after the Severn. It flows gently through low-lying fields in the beginning. When it gets to London, it meets the estuary's waters, which makes the tides deeper and stronger. This is one reason why the Thames Barrier was built in 1982. Its job is to protect central London from flooding. Its importance as a port came before its importance as a capital. Before the railway became popular, people and goods were transported by boat from one bank to another across the city. In 1858, London had more than 2.5 million people, and almost all dumped their trash in the Thames. The bill gave money to the Metropolitan Board of Works. This gave them the power to start a huge engineering project that was bigger than anything else done that century. Joseph Bisselljet, who designed London's first sewer system, was chosen to lead the project. There was more to the Thames problems, though. By the 1950s, much of the river's wildlife was already dead or in danger. A series of major repairs in the 1960s ensured that some of the wildlife survived. The project's goal is to build a new tunnel, called a super sewer, under the River Thames that can handle the extra waste. This means connecting people and engineering from the past to the present. From art projects to education programs, from helping river wildlife to helping people who live and work on and around the river, the Thames Tideway has big goals. Even though the Thames Tideway is new, its builders are using London's history to help them build it. To avoid adding to the traffic and pollution on London's already busy roads, they want to move as much material as possible by the river, just like people did in the past. Researchers from Mola Headland Infrastructure are one of the groups helping with the Thames Tideway. They specialize in the archaeology of urban areas and help with construction sites. Their past projects include the site of the Olympic Park in 2012 and several major roads and train lines. Archaeological mitigation is the process of protecting important historical sites from damage during building projects. Mola was then chosen to do the mitigation work on its own. It surveyed the shore, listed any historic buildings, and started a series of archaeological digs. The goal was to learn about the river's history in a way that had never been done before, including how people had changed it over the years. On the day of the discovery, workers were digging the shaft at the Tideway's chambers. The wharf site, ready for more tunneling, is near what was once the Bermondsey Wall, which was made of wood supports holding up a muddy embankment. The discovery was more than just a piece of pottery or a Roman coin. It was a human skeleton. The skeleton was found lying on its front with its head turned and one arm bent above it. This could mean that the man had fallen into the water. Maybe he was pushed while standing on Bermondsey Wall, but we may never know. If the mud had trapped him, it would have been hard for him to get out of the way of the tide before he drowned. Experts agree that the man wasn't properly buried because if he had been, he wouldn't have been in such a strange position. There was one part of the skeleton that stood out. This boot style was probably made in the 15th or 16th century, during or just before the reign of the Tudors. However, they are not typical of the shoes worn at the time. They are mostly made of leather. The flax thread that sews the leather quarters together is waxed, and there are no buckles. What makes them rare is that they go up to the knee. Archaeologists have found shoes and ankle boots from the same period, but knee-high boots are rare. Experts know how rare the boots are because there are almost no pictures of people wearing them in portraits and illuminated manuscripts from hundreds of years ago. They think this man may have worn his boots as servers like people wear Wellingtons today. This suggests he was in a restaurant. The plant lining in the bottom is moss was probably used to keep people warm and comfortable while waiting in the cold river. Waters archaeologists don't think it's likely that he was buried in the boots because such useful shoes made of such valuable leather would have been highly sought after. If someone had seen a dead man wearing them, they would have probably taken them for themselves. There is one place where archaeologists know that Tudor men wore knee-high boots. The Tudor king Henry VI grew the English navy a lot. The favorite of his new ships was the Mary Rose, one of the biggest. Unfortunately, a strong gust of wind blew it over on its side, and it sank in 1545. In 1982, the last pieces of the Mary Rose were finally brought up from the bottom of the sea. Treasures included a lot of knee-high boots, which sailors probably wore. This supports the idea that the skeleton found at Bermondsey worked in or around the water. This doesn't mean he was a sailor, though. He could have been a fisherman or a mudlark, for example. Mudlarks spend their days looking for valuables in the mud along the riverbank. Mudlarking took off in the 19th century when people tried to make money from anything they could find on the Thames. These things could be anything from ancient flint tools to Roman coins to 16th century pottery to a padlock from the 19th century. Even today, mudlarking is a popular hobby around the Thames. The goal is no longer to get rich, but to find historical artifacts. All you need is a permit from the Port of London Authority, a bucket and trowel, and clothes that can handle the mud. A bone expert looked at the man who wore the boots. Her research shows that the man led a physically active life. He had a degenerative disease of the joints that affected both his left hip and his spine. Some old injuries, like a healed broken nose, may have been from his childhood. There was also evidence of trauma to his head, and his teeth had grooves that could have been made by holding or pulling something in. The man might have been older or younger than 35, but it's hard to tell. 14 babies died before they were a year old because of poor living conditions. The skeleton was lucky to live as long as he did, and it's clear he didn't have an easy life. Experts don't know if the man fell into the river because he was tired, drunk, careless, or already on the bank. When the tide caught him, it seemed that the river that helped him make a living was at least partly to blame for his death. The team still wants to learn as much as possible about the man and keep studying him. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.